Miami was looking to make it 3 in a row facing a Lakers team without LeBron James or Anthony Davis. An easy win, right? Not so fast, as the Heat struggled defensively against LA's speed and size and took another step back, losing yet another clutch game that revealed how bad Miami's offense could be without a steady three-point shot. We break it all down on tonight's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. However you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or wherever you get your podcast, thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The Heat lose to the Lakers without LeBron or Anthony Davis, 112-109. The Lakers were the more energetic and physical team right out of the gate, getting out to a 13-point lead early in that first half, but the Heat came back thanks to 13 points in the third quarter from one Jimmy Butler, and they ended up taking a 6-point lead midway through the fourth quarter. But that's when the defense fell apart, allowing the Lakers to go on a run and take the lead. The offense had plenty of issues throughout the game. Still, despite the ugliness of this game from the Heat, they had a chance late. Max Strus misses a three-pointer. Kyle Lowry gets the rebounder, gets the offensive rebound, touch passes it back to Strus. He drills a three-pointer for the first time in what feels like a bajillion years with seconds left to tie the game. And the Lakers go down, get fouled, free throws, blah, blah, blah. The Heat are down 3, have a chance to tie the game, get it to Jimmy Butler with a full-court chest pass from Kyle Lowry. Jimmy Butler gets the ball, three-pointer at the buzzer, rimmed off. The Heat fall back to 20-19. But given just how ugly this thing was, David, the fact that Miami had its preferred starting lineup for just the 14th time this season, but they did have it, the bench mostly intact. I know that they were without Duncan Robinson, something we'll talk about later on, as well as Blaine Pye. But with all of this, no LeBron James for the Lakers, no Anthony Davis for the Lakers, no Lonnie Walker for the Lakers. Their top 3 scorers not there. Is this Miami's worst loss of the season?
It feels that way, especially the fact that it's a West Coast road trip game and everybody's up late and you stay up to watch these performances and you go, why did I waste that kind of time? Now, I mean, I'm speaking on behalf of fans that stayed up to watch a game. Our job is to watch these games and to talk about it afterwards for those of people who couldn't make that trek and stay up late. But, I don't think it was that bad, to be 100% honest with you. I know it feels that way. My big takeaway was, one, that there were some incredible performances from LA's depth tonight that have not been the norm all season long. And this was, I don't know if this was necessarily the blueprint for the Los Angeles front office, but the assumption is, well, you've got LeBron, you've got Anthony Davis. It's the strength of our roster. If you can get great games every once in a while from Westbrook, Schroeder, or Thomas Bryant, or somebody else that could step up on occasion, we could still be a good playoff team. That hasn't been the case. It just happened to be the case tonight against Miami. I know Miami's defense was bad.
So you're, that's Miami's defense was horrible. This wasn't just a matter of Dennis Schroeder. I mean, Dennis Schroeder had a nice game. Thomas Bryant had a nice game, but there was plenty of reasons why they had good games. And I think a lot of that blame, I know we're going to do Blame Pie later, but that falls on the Heat, I think.
I'm not there. I'm just saying, I think they weren't prepared for this smaller lineup. Like they just faced the Lakers a week ago in Miami and they completely beat that team. They were beating them up inside. They were beating them on the outside. They weren't worried about it. Instead, they get some really incredible production from Schroeder, the speed, the quickness, the shot was falling, the 14 fourth quarter points, the constant trips to the free throw line, a lot of shots that he just isn't capable of making or hasn't been capable of making with any kind of regularity. Westbrook looked dynamic early on. All the criticism looked like it was just ridiculous in comparison to what we saw from that player today. Like, he just looked really, really good. And I don't think it was necessarily a byproduct of just Miami's defense. I will say there was plenty of blame to go around defensively, but you also counter that with some really, really strong performances that were very atypical. So just to answer your question, look, I'm bummed out. I think it was a terrible loss. I think it sucked. I think Miami took a step back. They were exposed in many ways. At the same time, I think it has more to do with the Lakers getting, again, those atypical performances from key players as opposed to Miami just coughing up another loss.
I appreciate your optimism, but I completely disagree with you. The Heat should have won this game. There's absolutely no excuse. Like, cool, Dennis Schroeder scored 32 points. I don't care. This is not a game you can lose. I understand it was the fourth day in Los Angeles, whatever. I know that there was jokes being made about that. Maybe there's something to it. Also, don't do that. You're 2 games over 500. If it's a matter of a little bit of a Los Angeles hangover, that's a locker room problem. Like, there's no excuse for any of this. Like, the defense was terrible at the point of attack. Dennis Schroeder shouldn't have had that many points. The fouling was way out of hand earlier in that game, and the Lakers were just a more physical team. You mentioned something earlier, like maybe the Heat were caught off guard by some of these performances, and given that there was no LeBron, no Anthony Davis, that's a you problem, Miami Heat. Like, you shouldn't be caught off guard by anybody at this point. You're a 500 ball club. You've got to win these games, and losing these games is why the Heat are where they are. In terms of the worst losses of the season, look, the ones that stand out right away, the Pistons at the beginning of December 6th.
That's much worse, I think.
They lose that one, but they were without Jimmy Butler, okay? So I actually think that it was at home. Granted, this one was on the road. Actually, all the ones I'm about to list are home games. This is the only one that was on the road that I'm about to list. But I have a pretty clear top 4 of worst losses of the season. Okay. The Pistons without Jimmy Butler, that one's bad. I don't think it's as bad as this one because you didn't have your best player in Jimmy Butler, and you had your preferred starting lineup tonight, and then the opponent was missing their top 3 scorers. The Pistons one is bad, not as bad as this Lakers one. The Grizzlies on December 5th. The Grizzlies came in without John Morant or Jaren Jackson Jr. or Desmond Bane. The Heat had their full allotment of starters. No Oladipo back yet, but still, that one's probably worse. But the Grizzlies are actually good, and they have like a 2-year track record of winning games without their best players. The Lakers are LeBron James, Anthony Davis, end of list. Like, they just lost to Juan Toscano-Anderson and Wenyen Gabriel. That is a problem. Like, the Grizzlies at least have good players in depth. The Lakers don't. And then the Spurs on December 10th, the Heat were with their full starters and lost to a Spurs team that is actively trying to lose games this year as an organization. That, to me, is the only one that I could say is head over heels worse than this one. The Spurs loss on December 10th is worse than this one. Also, it was at home. This is the second worst loss of the season. I think that the Pistons one is not as bad. You were without Jimmy Butler. And the Grizzlies one, it wasn't as bad because organizationally, the Grizzlies have shown a certain amount of fortitude that the Lakers just have not over the last couple of years. So this is the second worst loss of the season. It's also a really heartbreaking one, considering that it felt like the Heat were just starting to trend in the right direction. We were just having this conversation, it felt like, David. And then they pooped the bed with this. And this is why this team has had such a hard time building momentum this year.
That's all fair. I disagree about the worst, second worst loss, whatever. That's fine. It's a matter of opinion. It doesn't matter. Miami did not play the way they have recently to get to the point where they were at now. They went away from that offense. We just debated in our last episode whether or not the keys to the car should be turned over to the Tyler Herro bam pick and roll. Well, that only works if Tyler Herro's actually knocking down shots.
Should we talk about the box and one? Because that really threw off the Heat tonight. Tyler Herro, 4 of 14 overall, 1 of 5 from 3-point range. He was the Heat were outscored by 5 points when he was on the court. He's been so great lately, and the Lakers just throw out a box and one. Dennis Schroeder guarding him everywhere. That was a weird look, and they showed it to Miami early, and it took the offense out of rhythm, and then defensively. They just kept fouling the Lakers, and I don't know what it ended up being. What was it? 15 of 21 from the free throw line for the Heat, 24 of 30. So the Lakers ended up outscoring the Heat by 24 minus 15 is 9.
Yep.
Yeah, in a 1-point game. To me, that was the game. I'm curious, before we get 30 seconds on this, was this more of an offensive problem or a defensive problem for Miami tonight?
I think it was an offensive problem. The fact that Tyler couldn't score made things more difficult. And as we've seen from this team, if they don't have that kind of fluid offense, their defense does struggle. They give up transition points easily, et cetera. So I think they're tied together, but I would put most of the blame on the offense struggling.
111.2 points per 100 possessions. That would have been their offensive rating for the night. The Lakers, 114.3 points per 100 possessions. The Lakers, kind of an average offensive team in that regard. The Heat would have had one of the worst offenses in the league if this were what they do for the season. So I kind of lean defense. There was a lot of problems, a lot of blame to go around. That's what we're going to get to next. But first, tell the listeners about our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know a lot of people have made a goal of trying to eat a little bit healthier. Then if you want to, and you don't want to compromise taste, well, man, I've got just the thing for you. You got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious. You won't think they're good for you, but they're perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they're healthy, only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com, but now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. Walk to the pharmacy section, grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate or coconut puffs. And if you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later. And of course, you can always go to Built.com, but get your Built Bars today.
Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. That smell that you smell is the smelly smell
Rancid
of another smelly loss. It is time to hand out some blame pie, David. I'm going to go somewhere that I rarely go to start us off here. You know where I'm going with this. With this.
And he doesn't deserve it that much. Not that much.
I disagree. I think Eric Spoelstra got completely outcoached tonight.
Wow.
I credit Eric Spoelstra a lot for finding the right buttons to push midstream throughout a game. He is one of the best in the league at doing this. Coaching not only by feel, but also intuition and obviously having an overall strategy and being a master of so many different kinds of strategies at this point on both sides of the ball. Tonight he was completely outcoached by Darvin Ham. The switch everything defense. Let's just start there.
Yeah, not good. Did not work. With
no reason for it. No
Yeah.
reason for it. They kept pulling they kept bringing guys like Tyler Herro, Max Strus into switches, getting smaller guys pinned against Thomas Bryant in the paint. Thomas Bryant had how many offensive rebounds? I think it was like 4 or 5 in the game. And he had a bunch in the fourth quarter. Let me just check really quick. 3 offensive rebounds, 9 overall, but like 3 offensive rebounds that felt like they all led to 6 points in a 1-point game. Those were big. And the rebounding margin in general, 52 rebounds, 53 rebounds for the Heat, 52 for the Lakers wasn't bad, but it just felt like all the Lakers rebounds led to points in the way that Miami's didn't. And the switching scheme was really, really tough. And the other thing too would be, okay, you live with that stuff if the switching is getting what you want defensively.
Right.
Meaning like, hey, you're stonewalling at the point of attack, you're not allowing that paint penetration, and you're preventing the 3-point looks and all that stuff on the perimeter. If you're able to switch and limit that stuff on the perimeter, then you can live with that old school post up stuff. Who cares, right? Like nobody cares about that. If you can limit the perimeter stuff, Miami couldn't limit any of the stuff. Not the perimeter stuff, not the paint stuff. Their point of attack defense was terrible. And so I thought, okay, this is the Lakers, the team that LeBron came into this season saying, we have no lasers, we've got no shooters. And instead of going under every screen, you're going over a bunch of the screens. You're leaving your smaller guards on an island on Thomas Bryant, who's been awesome for the Lakers lately. I just didn't understand it. Either go under the screens and play drop coverage, go to the zone more often. They did a little bit here and there. Nothing was really working. The player performance wasn't where it needed to be regardless. But Eric Spoelstra not pushing that button defensively, to me, was a big problem. We could talk about what Spo didn't do offensively in a second, but what were your thoughts on what he didn't do defensively?
I think he deserves some blame pie. I'd say 3 slices of blame pie is fair. I also think it was the worst of Spoelstra in the sense that he is a firm believer in dictating pace. You play to your strengths. You do what you do well. And this was a case of leaning too heavily into that and saying, this is our team. Our team switches everything. We're going to continue to do that. And that was unfortunate. We've seen Spoelstra so effective over the course of his career, be able to make in-series adjustments when it matters most during the playoffs. This was a time when it was just a regular season game, and he should have been more willing, I think, to make those kinds of adjustments, recognizing the switch wasn't working, recognizing that Victor Oladipo shouldn't have been part of the closing lineup, that Caleb Martin was probably a more effective option
or even Gabe
at the point of attack.
Yeah.
Or Gabe, somebody should have been out there, but not the closing lineup that he went with. We just talked about whether or not the right closing lineup should include Victor Oladipo, and we said no, he's not there yet. He's not the right option offensively, and he certainly wasn't the right option defensively too. He just was getting cooked out there, and so we've seen Caleb much more effective. And I'm not sure if it was a byproduct of
wasn't Caleb out? Wasn't Caleb out there, or was that just the final possession there where they needed a defensive stop?
Yeah, they brought him out defensively just for that. He missed most of the fourth quarter, and it was confounding. They talked about it in the broadcast. They said, and the Heat broadcast, because I know you were watching the ESPN broadcast, but they were saying that Victor played almost all of the fourth quarter. And for what? To give up a bunch of points to get caught on those switches?
Oladipo lost Russell Westbrook on that Austin Reeves inbound. Bam, that Bam almost stole. It was Oladipo losing Westbrook, just completely losing him behind him.
Turn his back,
and then turn his back, and then Oladipo ended up fouling right there and helping the Lakers go up 4.
He had the nice jumper in the lane. He hit a free
for
throw.
every kind of cool looking fadeaway one-legged jumper that he makes in the mid range. There's like 3 way too early in the shot clock pull up 3-pointers that he has no business taking, and I'm. Offensively, I'm getting really sick of Oladipo trying to prove to everybody that he's still an all-NBA player, because he's not playing like one. And maybe one day you can get there, Vic. We're all rooting for you. We really are. But this stuff early in the shot clock, it has to stop. It's the worst version of offense. I'm not saying don't take threes, but you're not a good 3-point shooter. You never really have been. This isn't like a new thing. Even to your All-Star days, you have one anomalous season of making threes at like a slightly above a league average rate. You've never been a 3-point shooter. I don't know why these shots come with 6 seconds into your offensive shot clock. It doesn't make any sense. Oladipo, I've got 3 slices of blame pie. He was really bad.
Oh, our numbers are off. Our numbers are a little off there, because I think as bad as he was defensively, like he provided some occasional spark offensively, and to confirm now, looking at the final box score, he wound up playing 11 minutes and 40 seconds in the fourth quarter.
That's partly on Spo too, to your point though, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
He doesn't have it going. By the way, the ESPN broadcast thought that Victor Oladipo was one of Miami's best players tonight. And when I say the ESPN broadcast, I mean basically the Lakers broadcast, because they talked about the Lakers the entire game.
95% of the time.
The only time they didn't was like Victor Oladipo's giving them something good off the bench. And they were saying the same thing about Russell Westbrook. I don't know. I couldn't. Whatever. Does not matter. Different thing. They don't get blame pie, but they should.
I've got Tyler getting
wait. Before we move off of Spo and Oladipo, I had Spo getting 5 slices of blame pie.
Oh wow.
We didn't even talk about offensively. Just being that thrown by the Lakers box and one tactics and having absolutely zero counter for it. And basically there was a period there where Tyler Herro I think Spo instructed Tyler, hey, run around, get Shooter off of you. And he did it. And Shooter never got off of him. Shooter, credit to him, had an awesome game. I actually thought he was better defensively than he even was offensively. I thought the Heat just gave him all 31 points. He was really good. I blame the Heat more than I credit Shooter offensively. Defensively, he set the tone for the Lakers, and whatever. He had a great game on both sides of the ball. But
that's why I kind of to our point in the first quarter. I think these were really atypical performances. Schroeder is
atypical because the Heat allowed them to be atypical. I would argue, but
chicken or egg maybe.
I suppose. But going back to Spo, like just being that thrown off by an elementary school tactic in the box and one, and I'm not even exaggerating. That is something that happens in middle school basketball. Having no counter for it, and then basically after trying to instruct Tyler to run Shooter off the ball and that obviously not working, then basically telling Tyler to just stay in the corner, that basically put Shooter back in the defensive plays and Tyler out of them, because that short corner, it's easy for Shooter to kind of come in and help and tag Bam or Jimmy in the low post in that block where they like to operate. I say it was pretty obvious to me, and I tweeted this during the game, just have Tyler stand 35 feet away from the basket and just dare Shooter to stand there with him. And then at least if you're Tyler, he had the one 3-pointer that Tyler made the entire game was off of an offensive rebound, and then the chaos situation that ensues after that, where the box and one becomes irrelevant. that actually puts Herro in position to do that a little bit more, as well as get back and play some transition defense where transition was where defense was such a big deal, a big problem for the Heat tonight too. So I thought that was a really obvious kind of schematic thing that you could have done. Would it have won the Heat the game? I don't know. But the fact that Spo was thrown that early and had no counter for 4 quarters was disconcerting. And that's why I'm giving him so much blame, because I thought he got outcoached, not just on the defensive side of the ball, but on the offensive side of the ball as well. I actually am giving no blame pie to Tyler Herro. I know he went for 4 for 14, 1 of 5, but he was taken out of the game. He was taken out of the game by the box and one.
He had shots that he makes that he did not make. Box and one, my ass. Like that's a shot that you want to be an all-star. You want to get paid your max contract. You want to get all the accolades. Like, we can't give him credit for when he has these big games and when he shits the bed the way he did tonight, not give him the blame, because that's exactly what he did. Like, he just great defensive effort, thrown off, mismatches, different looks or whatever. Sure, but you've got those shots. Those were wide open 3-point shots. That wasn't boxing and one related or anything like that. That wasn't anything. He just didn't hit the 3-point shots.
They didn't look wide open to me, man.
Midway jumper. You can go back and look. I'll go back and look at them myself.
Right, I'll hear you. I'll give one slice to
14.
So we'll take one blame.
It down 3 and 3 for Tyler and Spo apiece, and then 2 for Max and 2 for Oladipo.
Oladipo needs more than 2. Oladipo needs more than 2. How about?
But at least he provided some.
I haven't even gotten to Strus or Caleb Martin, by the way. Right now,
Caleb was fine. He wasn't even a factor.
No, Caleb was terrible defensively, and I know that the knee is an issue. If you want to give him an excuse for that, which I'm not saying excuse in a derogatory way, it's a legit one. If that injury is still a concern, that would explain his point of attack. His point of attack defense was awful. It's as bad as I've ever seen it with him in a Heat uniform. Offensively, he couldn't make a shot, but. Again, if you want to chalk that up to the injury, I'll hear you and then wave the blame on Caleb. Is that where you want to go with this?
Sure.
Okay, so no blame for Caleb.
He was trying.
So Max Strus needs at least 1.
I'm saying 2. I think 2 for him because he was off.
2 of 8, 1 for 6 on the day that you learn that, hey, we're all relying on you to make threes with Duncan Robinson out, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Right. He needs 2. So I've got 4 for Spo, 3 for Oladipo, 2 for Strus, 1 for Herro. Where are we different?
Less for Spo. Because, again, I think Tyler takes more blame for missing the shots that he should have taken.
Let's compromise. Let's compromise. 2 to Tyler Herro, 3 to Spo, 3 to Oladipo, 2 to Strus.
I guess that's fair. I still think, again, like, coaching to an extent, I totally get it. But you can't the
second half. He just parked Tyler in the corner. He had Tyler just stood in the corner every offensive possession. And look, I would love to be able to be in Los Angeles and ask why. Was that a Tyler decision or was that a Spo decision? To me, based on context clues, it felt like a Spo decision, and it's one that I disagreed with. And Tyler did not have a good first half. We're not absolving him of all blame, but I thought most of the second half was basically Spo throwing his hands up in the air and just saying, just stand in the corner. We'll try to figure it out 4-on-4. Can we also give not something we've ever done all season long, but Dewayne Dedmon gets a blame muffin, or something. Like we're going to talk about him blame pastry. We're going to talk about him in the next segment, but first, David, tell listeners about our proud sponsor.
If you're a small business owner, this episode, brought to you by LinkedIn Talent Solutions. If you're a small business owner or a hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. And that's why you've got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve those goals. It's been something I've had to do in the past, finding the right personnel, and LinkedIn makes it so easy. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools that go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post company and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. Identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect with them fast and for free. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications, all on one platform. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
Reach Locked On Heat on Twitter. Find us on Instagram. You can email us, lockedonheat@gmail.com. Send in your questions for our post-game shows using the hashtag on Twitter, AskLOHeat. These questions come in from that hashtag. First one comes from Boomer. How can Eric Spoelstra justify playing the corpse of Dewayne Dedmon over Orlando Robinson? Quickly, the box score here. Dewayne Dedmon getting 6.5 minutes in this one. The Heat getting outscored by 3 points in those 6.5 minutes. Orlando Robinson getting a token 3.5 minutes in the first half. In the first quarter, I believe all of those minutes came. Look, Dewayne Dedmon, the Heat were outscored, like I said, by 3 in his minutes. Orlando Robinson, the Heat were outscored by 2 points in his 3.5 minutes. So minute for minute, you can't really argue that Dewayne Dedmon was worse than Orlando Robinson. However, I will say this. Dewayne Dedmon complaining about a foul call that never existed getting ripped from behind while standing there with the live ball in his hands, getting ripped from behind, and then jumping in front of the Lakers player that did it, and then getting called for the blocking foul that he earned because he was jumping in front of the player and he was not at a standstill, not even close. To me, is a fireable offense. It is a fireable offense. I like Dewayne Dedmon as a locker room guy. I like him as a veteran presence on this team. I think those kinds of things are important when it comes to team chemistry. There's a reason the Heat brought him back.
Yep.
But there is absolutely zero excuse for that on a Miami Heat team, on an Eric Spoelstra coach team, on a Pat Riley run team. There is zero excuse for that. That is a fireable offense in my book. Obviously, the Heat can't actually fire him because his contract is guaranteed, and that would be very pointless for the Heat to actually literally quite to do. But at that point, at the very least, you are in the doghouse. You are not coming back in this game. I don't know what Eric Spoelstra saw in Orlando Robinson's 3.5 minutes, but he must have been so concerned about them that there was just no way he was going back to him, because he didn't. And he actually did go back to Dewayne Dedmon, and Dewayne Dedmon was not as bad as just giving the ball away bad, but not very good for the rest of the game.
But that's the lowest the bar could possibly be. I think
I tweeted it was the low point of his season, which has been a low point of the last few years of his career.
We talked about, if you're going to have Bam Adebayo, probably the best defensive center in the NBA, and he's taken out of his strengths because of Miami's overall defensive scheme and approach and everything else. Again, something that Spo tends to kind of, minimize in terms of its overall importance. You can't afford to have slower centers out there, but you also have to give Bam the occasional rest. So I guess he just felt more comfortable. I guess also in terms of what we talked about, just drawing, in theory, Thomas Bryant away from the basket, because Dedmon does have a semi-reliable shot, or at least a shot that he feels comfortable taking, that he did tonight.
Yeah.
So I think that was the rationale. I'm thinking, again, Maybe. We're not in the post-game presser, so that's the thought process I imagine that Spo could say is like, well, Dwayne's more experienced. It's also Los Angeles, where Dwayne's from. Maybe he wants to play him in front of family. I don't know. Those kinds of things do matter. They are factors.
You shouldn't have done that in front of family. That was embarrassing in front of your family. In front of your family. And like the Orlando Robinson thing too, part of this is, look, I have been sort of the guy being like, okay, let's slow down on the Orlando Robinson is now anointed as the best. I've been pumping the brakes on that more than anybody. But tonight, he should have been in there. And to just waste one of his two-way days on 3.5 minutes. I mean, this is a guy who came into tonight with 23 days remaining on his two-way contract, to just waste it for 3.5 token minutes in the first quarter. That's what I want. I really would love to ask Spo, what did you see in those 3.5 minutes that troubled you so much that you went back to Dedmon after, and this Orlando Robinson played before Dedmon gave the ball away and drew the blocking call. Like, he must have saw something. Whatever. Hard to tell. Let's go to the next question. This one comes from Paul L.
No, I want to build off that, because you're right. That's a really good point. I mean, like, you've got him here for a limited amount of time. He's bringing something, at least on the interior, that Dedmon cannot provide at this point, just because he's faster than Dedmon. Dedmon's even slower than Robinson, if you can imagine it. And Robinson's not particularly quick. He's certainly no Bam Adebayo. But you've got him out there, and he's active. He plays in the game. You've wasted this opportunity. Again, one of the potential few days that he has available to him. And you've got him out there for a few minutes just so you could play Dedmon. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
That's what I'm saying. Spo must have saw something. I can't imagine that he...
Maybe?
We texted in the first half.
He was good against Brian in the first half.
I thought he was too. That's what I'm saying. I don't get it. I'm not defending. I don't. But Spo must have saw something that really troubled him in this matchup. What
was off his game too?
I don't know. I mean, Orlando Robinson wasn't great. It wasn't like he came out and was awesome. Like the Heat, the Lakers outscored the Heat by 2 points in his 3.5 minutes. That's a really bad ratio. But it's also only 3.5 minutes, and it was also only 2 points. It's a really small sample size. I just can't really figure out what it was. But we came. I would have to go back and watch him. I don't know. I wonder going forward if they're gonna. We texted about this in the first half, David, where it's like, all right, you go Orlando Robinson in the first quarter, and then Dewayne Dedmon in the second quarter, and I was like, oh, maybe it's like what last year was with Strus and Duncan, where it was like, all right, just sort of play them both in the first half. Whoever's playing better, you play them down the stretch. And apparently Spo said that, hey, I don't care that you just give the ball away and then get needless foul calls in a game where we're getting destroyed at the free throw line. You're outplaying Orlando Robinson, apparently was his decision. Paul L. writes in, the Heat need another shooter while Duncan Robinson is out. That is maybe the most obvious statement that we've ever received in a mailbag, but we do appreciate it. And also I wanted to use it as a jumping off point to tell you these stats. The Heat shooters entering tonight over the past 8-3 stretch. Again, the Heat winning 8 of their last 11 games going into tonight's loss to the Lakers. Here are the Heat's important shooters over that stretch and what they're shooting from three-point range. Tyler Herro, 41.4%. Obviously, that's going to go down after tonight, but coming in, he's been awesome. Kyle Lowry, 35.6%. Not necessarily where you'd want it to be, but better than where he has been. So improving.
League average.
That's it. That's all of the league average people. Everybody else stinks. Max Strus, 32.2% coming into the night. Gabe Vincent, 30%. Caleb Martin dealing with the injury and stuff, 25%. Duncan Robinson, prior to the surgery that he had on Thursday, in the last 11 games, had been shooting 36.1%. So he'd actually been trending up in the right direction, despite apparently having this issue on his middle finger on his shooting hand. So now you're minus your second best volume shooter behind Tyler Herro. And this is why we gave Max Strus so much blame pie, but we could have easily given it to Caleb Martin, easily given it to even Gabe Vincent too. In tonight's game, Max Strus, Tyler Herro, Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin, and Gabe Vincent combined to miss 14 of their 18 threes. They need to be better, and I just don't know what the answer is. I don't even know what to believe anymore. This is more than just a slump. This is half of a season now of these guys not outside of Caleb Martin. Caleb Martin has been pretty good before the injury. He was shooting at like almost 40%. But everybody else, not so much, not even league average. I don't know if they're closer to this in terms of Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, and if last year was just an anomaly year from three-point range. I think the question is worth asking. Maybe they're not so ignitable, David.
It's possible. I think like a lot of that has to do with changing overall offensive principles, not nearly enough dribble handoff, mostly running off pick and rolls and attacking the paint. They've been very, very good at the paint, and it's cost them to a huge degree.
You think that makes a difference? That's an interesting point. You think that makes a difference when Max Strus and Gabe Vincent are basically just standing on the perimeter and like whatever happens in the paint, they're basically just standing there and catching the ball and shooting?
I think they had gone into comfortable, like Duncan, Max, Gabe, others, like they had been more comfortable, I think, just coming off of screens and getting those kind of open looks that way, being on the move a little bit as opposed to just catch and shoot type players. I think it makes a difference.
There's still a little bit of that. I mean, Bam's running dribble handoffs plenty. He's running them as much as he did last year.
Yeah, but last year they seemed like they had gone away from it too. And then they were lucky, very, very, very lucky that they got the very best version of PJ Tucker, who happened to be incendiary from the corners for the first half of the season and then cooled off significantly after that, kind of leading to the same offensive woes that we've seen this year. I just think that's more of the issue, is that you were running a 4-on-5 offense with PJ kind of camped down the corner, and it worked for the first 40 games of the year. Then after that, not so much.
I'm not saying that you're wrong, but if you're right, then the Heat still have a problem, because if you could only make threes out of certain sets, that's not good in the NBA. Like, you need to that means you're not a very good shooter. Like, good shooters can just make shots, whether it's catch and shoot, off the dribble, pull up, coming off a screen, off of a pin down, whatever it is. The great shooters make those shots. Tyler Herro makes all those shots. If you can't make a variety of looks, you're just not that good of a shooter.
It's a fair question. You're just also not going to find another shooter to the original question. You're not going to get somebody to replace what Duncan Robinson did to get him up to speed, to incorporate him. Look, they're not going to make those kind of roster changes. They can't bring somebody else in, wave Orlando Robinson,
there's nobody in the G League making shots like that. I mean, you could try the Michael Mulder thing again if you really want, but no, I'm with you. They do need another shooter, and that shooter pretty much has to exist on the roster already. I think Max Strus is a good three-point shooter. Good three-point shooters tend to start making threes. Gabe Vincent has less of a historical track record, even going back to college, and Gabe Vincent or than Max Strus does. Caleb Martin has been, once this injury hopefully fades, hopefully he kind of gets back to where he was. He was a really good shooter before the injury that he's obviously playing through. Victor Oladipo needs to stop taking threes. Just stop. Don't do them anymore. And then Kyle Lowry needs to continue trending in this right direction. But more than anything, with Duncan Robinson out, they need Max Strus to come around and basically shoot 40% for the rest of the season, because I really don't know. I'm with you. Like, good luck finding another shooter. It's going to be really hard to go get that guy at this point.
You would probably argue, and I'm sure that's a good argument, that he might be able to reach those numbers if he was starting, like coming off the bench, especially Bam's out of the lineup.
Ridiculous. I don't believe. I mean, he plays with Bam plenty in that second unit. It's the Bam and Tyler show with Duncan, or it had been Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, and usually Gabe Vincent or Victor Oladipo, and he's been healthy. So
I'm throwing stuff on the wall to see what sticks, because I'm.
What would you do then? Okay, so you're
excuses.
gonna start Strus and then do what to the starting lineup? You gonna bench Herro?
I would bench Caleb for a little bit. I think you can afford to bench Caleb for
minutes restriction while he's dealing with the injury.
Yeah,
try it. I'm okay with it. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On Heat on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Ring the bell to get notified as soon as new episodes go up. Now make your second listen Game to Game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. David, get some sleep.
Yeah, I could use some.